What are civic rights? So for the rest of the pod, we're going to look at what we as people, as citizens, have to do with all the stuff that we've been talking about in the previous lessons. So what do we have to do with whether or not people are good or evil? What do we have to do with the rule of law and making sure that it functions properly and runs society? What do we have to do with all the big ideas of the Constitution and how power is split up in the United States? So what we'll do is we'll look at our rights, our responsibilities, and our duties as citizens, as people who live in the United States, and try and figure out what it has to do with all the other stuff we've been talking about. So our objective is to define the rights ensured by government, and our essential question, or the question that you'll be able to answer by the end of the lesson, is what are our rights? So before we get into rights, let's just make sure that we understand these three words that we've gone over a few times this year. The three words are rights, responsibilities, and duties. So what's the difference between these three? Rights are things that we have that the government cannot take away from us. They allow us to keep the government in check. An example of a right that we have is freedom of speech. Responsibilities are things that we should do but are not required to do by law. An example, helping those that are in need or need a little extra help. Don't have to do that, but it's something that we should think about doing. Then what are duties? Duties are things that we have to do or we may get in trouble. An example is paying taxes. So we'll go through those one more time. Rights are things that we get to do, that we have, that the government can't take away from us. Responsibilities are things that we should do, but do not have to do. And duties are things that we have to do or we're going to get in trouble. So where do our rights come from? Our rights come from the Constitution. The Constitution lays out rights that we have as people living in the United States. Some of the main ones are to vote and hold elected office. That means that we get to pick the people that are in charge, and if we decide that we want to be one of those people in charge, we can run for office and try and get power by getting people to vote for us. We can say what we think in speech or in writing. That's freedom of speech. We have the right to practice our own religion. The United States does not have one religion. We can practice whatever religion we'd like. We have the right to a fair trial. If we're accused of doing something wrong, we're allowed to have a trial to decide whether we're guilty or not guilty. And we have the right to be protected while in other countries. If we're somewhere else, in another country, and something happens, it is the job of our government to protect us. So remember, the main place that our rights come from are the Bill of Rights. Remember, the Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. They got made because there were some people, they were called the Anti-Federalists, and they wanted some rights written down in the Constitution. They wanted rights written down in the Constitution because they felt like if they weren't written down, then the government might be able to abuse them or not provide them to people. So in order to get the Constitution passed and everyone agreeing to it, the Bill of Rights were included to make sure that people's rights were protected and in writing. So I'll go through them real quick. First Amendment, the one most people know, that's the one that has freedom of speech and religion and press, which is a fancy word for news. Assembly, meaning we can gather in groups. And petition, meaning when we think something's wrong, we can speak up about it. That's the First Amendment. Second Amendment's the right to bear arms, right to own a weapon. 3 deals with quartering of soldiers, meaning the government can't make your house into a barracks, meaning like a place where soldiers live. 4 protects you from unreasonable search and seizure, meaning that if you're going to be searched or taken into police custody, they need to have probable cause or reason to do so. They can't do it just because they feel like it. And 5 deals with the rights of persons accused of crimes, meaning if we're ever accused of crimes, even though we might be guilty, we still have rights in that process to determine whether we're guilty or not guilty. So there's a few more. Amendment 6, rights of persons on trial for crimes. These are our rights when we're actually on trial and things we can do while we're on trial and things that the government can't do to us just because we're on trial. 7 is jury trials in civil cases, meaning that if we have a case with another person, there can be a jury or a group of people to decide who's right and who's wrong. 8 deals with limitations on bail and punishment. You probably know it as cruel and unusual punishment. It protects us from cruel and unusual punishment. 9 deals with rights kept by the people, and 10 deals with power kept by the states or the people. 9 and 10 are kind of just fancy ways of saying just because it's not in the Constitution, it doesn't mean that people don't have that right. And we'll get into that more in a few slides. There's some other ones as well. And amendments are changes to the Constitution, and as time has passed, there's been a lot of changes to the Constitution as people have started to realize that some rights weren't exactly understood and they needed to be in writing. For example, Amendments 13, 14, and 15 dealt with slavery and the rights of African Americans in the United States. 13 got rid of slavery. 14 described who is a citizen and what rights they have. And 15 says that the right to vote shall not be denied on account of race, meaning that no matter what color your skin is, you're still allowed to vote. 17 established the election of senators by popular vote. It used to be that people didn't get to pick senators. They didn't get to vote for them. People realized, well, that's not very fair. People should be able to pick the people that are representing them. So they changed it to let us vote for senators. Amendment 19 says that voting shall not be denied on account of sex, meaning that women were able to vote after the 19th Amendment was passed. Amendment 22 decided that presidents can only be president for 2 terms or 8 years because there was a president named FDR who was president for a very long time, much more than 2 terms, and that scared some people. They didn't want the president to be in power for too long because then he might be like a king. So they just decided that the president can only be president for 8 years or 2 terms. Amendment 24 states that the right to vote shall not be denied on account of any poll tax, meaning you do not have to pay to vote. So just because you're poor doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to vote. And 26 said that you get to vote if you're 18 years or older. It used to be 21. They changed it to 18 because 18-year-olds were serving in the military. So are these all of your rights? Of course not. Not every right's in there, and that's what we were talking about with Amendment 9 and 10. Not every right is listed in the Constitution. It doesn't say in the Constitution that you have the right to wake up on Sunday morning and take your dog for a walk. It doesn't say in the Constitution that you have the right to go to the store and buy something that you want or need. Not every little thing is laid out in the Constitution. Just because it doesn't say it in there doesn't mean that you have it. You have all kinds of other rights as well. You can see some of them like you see up on the board. Most of our rights deal with just what it means to live our lives free of overwhelming government control and being able to just lead the life that we want to lead. And most of your rights you have, and we can do just about anything as long as it's not hurting someone else. That was a brief overview of our rights. Make sure you join us for class on Tuesday and Thursday. If you have questions or need help, please contact us. Our information is right there. If you do not need help, good luck.